If you did not hear, Bethesda customer support has been doing something deliciously awkward and cringe, which is sort of a specialty of theirs. I mean, we all know Starfield released on Steam, and it's been having troubles. It's now, I believe, mixed reviews. It's crossed from positive to mixed. And yeah, if we go here, you can see most of it is just tied up in performance. I mean, performance, and then also the exploration that is just not anywhere near as high quality as past Bethesda games. And I said this in my review at the time that the game launched, where like the things that Bethesda is best at, which are these hand designed environments that are meant to kind of tell stories passively just through the environment that's been crafted, that is entirely abandoned in Starfield for sake of these like procedurally generated spaces with copy and pasted locations. It just doesn't work anywhere near as well. It was a cool, ambitious experiment, but I think Starfield as it comes together just doesn't work the way they wanted it to. Not to say that you can't have fun with it. I think you absolutely can. And in a lot of ways, I think Starfield's really impressive. But in a lot of ways, I think huge chunks of it just don't work the way that they were supposed to. And I mean, these reviews reflect it. These are not bot reviews. These are not reviews of people mass downvoting the game because they hate it. These are people with 91 hours, 62 hours, 977, Jesus, 39, 20 hours, 59 hours, 13, 75 hours, 28 hours, 47, 29.8. Like a lot of the negative reviews that we're looking at, and of course there's 124,000 reviews to sift through, but a lot of these are not like, I played it for 5 minutes, then returned it. It sucks. These are not like PlayStation fanboys mass downvoting it because they want to. This is people that have played the game and simply found it lacking. Okay. Now, most developers would look at that and be like, okay, how can we take this feedback and grow from it? How can we expand upon this, right? Well, this is not necessarily entirely the devs' fault, okay? But there are some devs that are doing this. It's also partially members of their community team. Juicehead tweeted out this, and he captured a bunch of these reviews, which apparently you can like, yeah, a developer has responded. So you can view the response, and you can see that a member of Bethesda community support actually responded. So let's read this review, at least a little bit of it, and then see what the developer responded with, okay? It's already really weird for the developer to respond to reviews. Typically, if they do, it's responding to like a bug where the review is negative because they had some crazy bug that they describe in the review, and then the developer says, oh, we fixed that, update your drivers, and you'll have a great time. Thanks for playing, whatever. Like, that's normal. That's not what this is. Okay, spoiler alert. The review says, again, this is after 29 hours at the time of the review, okay? It says, quote, a game about space in which your ship is nothing more than set dressing for storage containers and an optional, extremely simplistic arcade-style minigame where you fly your ship in a line while holding the trigger long enough for every AI to blow themselves up by flying directly into your path. I mean, I agree the ship is basically an illusion. It's not actually a spaceship in Starfield. You can't really fly it in any meaningful sense other than in these like space dogfights, which are pretty clunky. The fact that they give you planets to explore and you can't fly your ship around the planet is insane to me. And I still don't know why so many people are like, no, it's fine, whatever. I think finally people are waking up to it. But I was saying this before the game launched, that it didn't make any damn sense that they were doing this. And people called me a hater and that I was like a Sony pony for saying this didn't make sense. But I've been saying this, as you guys know, for like a year since they started revealing details about Starfield. And I feel like finally people are kind of starting to see that it doesn't work properly. It just doesn't make sense. A space game where you can't really fly your ship around planets they give you to explore. Anyway, a game about exploration that delivers the thrill of opening your menu, selecting the fast travel option, clicking to fast travel to a star system, loading, then opening your menu, clicking to fast travel to a planet, loading, then answering the same NPC dialogue at every planet before you're treated to another loading screen to finally land on a planet. True. An immersive RPG in which every door in every colony is a loading screen, and Firing an infinite stream of bullets around citizens' heads in the middle of the city is apparently just another Tuesday in America for the new Atlanteans, as they, completely unbothered by the frag grenades going off all around them, continue to partake in every colonist's favorite activity, walking aimlessly into walls. A game which offers swashbuckling adventures in which successfully stealing a ship is as easy as killing 5 brainless NPCs. The payoff is possibly the most accurate GameStop trade-in simulator ever made. It costs $20K to register the ship. The ship only sells for $22K, and once you've collected your pittance, you'll see the exact same ship on the market with an asking price of $500K from the guy that gave you $2K for it. A game bursting with content in which each outpost and mission are functionally the same as the first 10 you play, and you'll be asked to do them all 100 plus times with almost zero variation. Honestly, after the first 20 hours, Starfield practically begs you to save yourself 120 gigabytes of storage space and forget it exists. A gripping storyline in which every character is as exciting as the bread aisle in the grocery store, and none of your choices matter. Seriously, exactly which brand of white bread you take home with you from the grocery store has more serious consequences than literally any decision Starfield asks the player to make. White or wheat is a more thrilling dilemma than anything in Starfield's narrative. A groundbreaking new IP that tries its hardest to be exactly like its sister IPs while utterly failing to deliver a fraction of their charm or greatness. This is easily the most disappointing Bethesda title ever made, including The Elder Scrolls Blades, because at least no one cared about, wanted, or had any expectations for a mobile title. It genuinely feels like at some point in development, the list of good ideas for Starfield and bad ideas for Starfield got swapped, and they made the worst possible version of Starfield that could be made. The absolute best that can be said of the title is that it really is one of the games of all time. Pretty savage, I will say. Pretty savage. They didn't like the game. They played it, didn't like the game. After 20 hours, they were burnt out. So normally, if a developer sees a review like this and they just didn't like it, okay, like, bummer. Hopefully they like it next time. What are you gonna do? Like, oh well. That's not what Bethesda's, I guess, community support team wanted to do. I don't know what they were thinking. But Bethesda Falco Yamaoka, I'm not sure, who is tagged as a developer for the game, a member of the Bethesda community support team. Bear in mind, this is the same team that was doing the stuff back with Fallout 76, where like if somebody had their account banned because they were suspected of cheating, Bethesda asked them to write a 500-word essay on why cheating in an online game is bad, and then they might get their account back. Like, that's this same team, okay? So they replied to this review and said, "Thank you for taking the time to provide your review, and we are sorry to hear that you were disappointed with encountering many load screens while playing." Does this not sound like ChatGPT already? While there may be loading screens in between fast traveling, just consider the amount of data for the expansive gameplay that is procedurally generated to load flawlessly in under 3 seconds. We believe that shortcoming will not hinder our players from getting lost in the world we created. Starfield is an RPG with hundreds of hours of quests to complete and characters to meet. Most quests will also vary on your character's skills and decisions, massively changing the outcome of your playthrough. Try creating different characters with backgrounds and characteristics that clash or are positive, that's new, of your previous character. You will feel like you are playing a totally different game. Put points in different skills from a character you've previously created, and you are now faced with completely different decisions to make and difficulties to encounter. There are so many layers to Starfield that you will find things you've never knew were possible after playing for hundreds of hours. Even after completing the main story, your adventure doesn't end. You can continue on to New Game Plus to keep exploring Starfield and all that is out there. Never stop exploring. Is that not a little weird? See what I mean? Like, people are starting to be like, did they use AI? Like, it's, I don't know. The misspelling is weird. I don't think ChatGPT would make a grammar mistake like that, but who knows? Who knows, maybe. Yokes, by the way, shout out to Yokes for resubbing with Prime and just hit 24 months over on Twitch. That's crazy. Thank you, my friend. Really, really weird. But this is not the only one, okay? This is not the only one. If we go back, okay, developers have responded to this review too. This one, Really straightforward. Played for 75 hours because I needed the dopamine fix. Looking back, it's a boring story in a boring world. Also, I cannot get over the one mission I thought would be awesome. Finding a ship launched from Earth 200 years earlier with the offspring of the original crew finally finding humanity. And they have the same computers with the same operating system on their ship as the rest of the universe. Why? Yeah, that's pretty stupid. They reply again. We appreciate you taking the time to provide your review and sorry to hear that you did not enjoy your time in Starfield. If you feel that things are getting boring, there's so much more to do than just the main mission. There are so many side missions where you can learn about the people and the story of Starfield. You can take time to explore various planets and resources and items, break the law by smuggling and selling contraband, build your own outposts and ships and customize them to your enjoyment. There are many things to do and you can visit our Discord for further ideas from other players. Starfield is an RPG. Like again, it feels very AI. Like they gave ChatGPT a link to a list of features of Starfield and said, can you reply to this negative comment using these features? It feels like that, does it not? Literal ChatGPT tier level of a response. Yeah, it feels very AI generated. It doesn't feel human at all. It's very, very weird. This other one, same thing. Also, these are very wordy responses, which kind of for me verifies that this is probably AI, because to type out something like this and respond to like dozens of reviews is really, really time consuming. And like, do they seriously have nothing better to do with their time as customer service agents than doing this? Like, how does this make any sense at all? Same kind of thing. I mean, we understand your frustration with fast travel making the universe feel much smaller. Given the immense size of Starfield, we felt it made more sense to be able to use your grav drive to jump to other solar systems. The option to fly freely among planets is still there. You can travel from one planet to another and land without needing to open your map if you use your scanner. However, for an expedition like solar system traversal, jumping is necessary. Remember that fast travel also has its perks, but you can do so quickly when trying to complete quests, and will always be given a visual of your ship launching and landing, thus being able to appreciate all the little details to make your customized ship look unique, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's again, the same kind of thing. It's just really, really weird that they would do this. And like months after launch too is even weirder. 2 months after launch, it's like, what, if you were really this worried and self-conscious about the reception of the game, why are you just now doing this? It's really, really odd. And, you know, I've butted heads with Juicehead a couple times in the past because of some stuff he was saying about like CDPR and financial markets. I just get personally, honestly, triggered when people in like public facing positions give out like misinformation as it relates to financial markets and stuff, because people have money on the line, and I think it's really irresponsible. If you don't know what you're talking about, that's okay. Just don't pretend like you do. So I've butted heads with Juicehead a couple times before, but I still will insist. I think the guy is very, very sharp, and I will give him credit. He has come around to I would say, acknowledge the evident problems with Starfield, and even much to the chagrin of his own community, some of his own viewers and fans are very upset with him that he's not still hyping the game up. But he tweeted out all this stuff and just points out that, yeah, I mean, a bunch of these comments are just really, really weird. Like it's just excusing away things players didn't like. And if you're a developer, okay, like you don't have to love the game. Like that's okay. If the developers are standing behind their design decision, cool, awesome, I can respect it. I disagree. I think the constant load screens are a problem, but at least somebody can stand behind it. But perhaps the most insane one was this one tweeted out by Ultima. We are sorry that you do not like landing on different planets and are finding many of them empty. Basically, this was in response to a review that was like, I land on all these like 1,000 different planets, but they're all basically the same thing. They have like a few rocks that are copy and pasted procedurally all over the place, and then maybe a cave that's the same cave I've seen 1,000 times, and pretty much all the planets, while they are big, boring, and empty, and there's not much interesting, begging the question, why are they there? Like, if this is a video game that's meant to be fun, why did they put all this stuff in here? This response is glorious. We are sorry that you do not like landing on different planets and are finding many of them empty. Some of Starfield's planets are meant to be empty by design, but that's not boring. I don't think that necessarily follows. We meant to do it, therefore it's not boring. It's not how that works, my friend. That's not how it works. You could have meant to do it and it still be very boring. I would argue that's precisely what happened. Quote, I don't know who they're quoting, but they say, quote, When the astronauts went to the moon, there was nothing there. They certainly weren't bored. Because they were on the freaking moon. Like, what? They're like, oh, yeah, oh, so you don't like Starfield because some of the planets are empty and boring. Well, astronauts went onto the moon and they weren't bored, so checkmate, dumbass. Like, what? What? This is like next level brain dead. I can't even, I'm baffled by this. It's just amazing. The intention of Starfield's exploration is to evoke a feeling of smallness in players and make you feel overwhelmed. It certainly does make me feel some things. You can continue to explore and find worlds that do have resources you need or hidden outposts to look through. Here's the dealio. Okay, there's a lot of moving parts to this. On the one hand, like there's hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi, or like hard simulation games and video games. Like if you're designing something to be fun, you are not going to necessarily design it to be the most realistic thing. Even a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, which we all know and love, has limitations to its realism. Things like needing to urinate or to go and eat at regular intervals, and needing to like make sure that players are not twisting their ankles when hopping off their horses and stuff. That stuff is not in the game because that wouldn't be fun. That would be a step too far into the realism space. So they shed that burden of realism for the sake of making it more fun and more enjoyable to play the game. And that's awesome. Like, I think that was the right choice, because at the end of the day, these are video games. If your game is, say, trying to be a space sim, more like a Star Citizen, okay, that's different. You don't have to make everything as fun because it's a simulation game. But if you're trying to make a video game, a game that's prioritizing fun and enjoyment over realistic simulations, you can't design it like a sim, right? And this is why Starfield is so weird, because parts of it are designed very much like a simulator game, like the big 1,000-planet list of places to go to. But then other parts of it are designed like a video game, like the constant fast traveling, the very small areas for you to explore that are much more finely catered and stuff. And it just can't seem to make up its mind as to what it wants to be. And with all of this, like, yes, Bethesda has the right to make the game as crazy elaborate as they want to, with 1,000 planets to explore in 100 different systems. And then they can also give you access to tons of places to land on each of those planets. But at the end of the day, if it's not fun, it just doesn't really matter, because the game is not a simulation game. It is supposedly an adventure RPG. That's what it's supposed to be, a Bethesda sandbox adventure game. And it's just not good at either sides of the equation. And so to be like, we're sorry you didn't like landing on the planets and they were boring, but we meant for them to be boring because that's what planets are actually like when you're out in space. After all, the astronauts didn't mind. Okay. Like, yeah, we're not astronauts, okay? Yes, if I were to actually travel to another planet on an actual spaceship, I'm sure I wouldn't be very bored. But we're talking about a video game right now. And a video game requires certain levels of interactivity. They require certain things to maintain engagement that Starfield just frankly fails at. I've done all those videos on like the 40-second rule of open world games, where open world games every 40 seconds roughly tend to have something that pulls your attention away to keep you mentally engaged. Some games can do it a little bit longer if they're going for a more realistic flavor. Like Red Dead is more like 80 seconds between points of interest or moments of interest. Whereas like Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, they're all closer to 40 seconds, The Witcher 3 as well. And that's just, for whatever reason, our brains like that 40-second timing. 80 seconds for a lot of people is too long, which is why a lot of people think that Red Dead is boring, but that's why personal preference comes into it. But 40 seconds seems to be the sweet spot. And this is not even controversial. This is well known in game design. If you go to school for game design, this is openly discussed. And with Starfield, it's like multiple minutes. Like if you're on a planet that you landed on and you look off in the distance, you see a point of interest and then you run to it. And because there's no vehicles in the game, you're running for 3, 4, 5 minutes to get to it. And then you arrive. And then after you take care of that, you look off, see another point of interest, and then 3-4 minutes running to that. Like, it is bafflingly boring simply because of how they designed it and arranged it. And I think they should have known well in advance that this is how it would play out and that players wouldn't connect with it the way they did. But frankly, at the end of the day, I think the story of Starfield is just that it's a game that's too ambitious and that was built on these like marketable ideas, like 1,000 planets in 100 systems, and that's it. They should have asked themselves, is this actually going to make for a fun game? But instead they didn't do that. Instead, they just kind of decided to push through. And I think it was a mistake. And this is why you're seeing it. I'm really, really glad that the community is coming around and is starting to see that this stuff is a little outrageous. But man, it's bad. Again, Starfield is a really cool concept that Bethesda's just, they don't have the technology to pull off. And very few developers, I think, have the technology to pull it off, to be clear. There's a reason everybody was like, this is very, very ambitious. But it's because you can't just make 1,000 planets interesting. You just can't. And then I think specifically coming from Bethesda, it was a blunder because Bethesda Game Studios is known for environmental storytelling and carefully crafted environments and stuff that really gives their worlds and games a certain flavor. And they just decided to ignore their strengths and double down on things that they weren't very good at, which is what makes it really, really strange. Really, really strange. Because it in some ways you see hints of Bethesda's design, like philosophies within Starfield. You see it occasionally in certain locations that are copy and pasted around. You might see it in like the main story a few times. But when you're out exploring, the magic of Bethesda games is completely absent because it was all built around this procedural generation stuff and it just doesn't work. It's not what they're good at. Like what they're good at, they seemingly abandoned, and it's so strange to me. It's really, really odd. We'll see if they figure it out for the next game, but this is why when I did that survey and I asked you guys, if you were more or less excited for the Elder Scrolls 6 after playing Starfield, something insane like 45% of you said that you were less excited, which is a huge problem for Bethesda. Huge problem. Like Starfield, I think, did more damage to Bethesda's reputation among their fans than anybody saw coming. I think even I was expecting probably the average consumer would probably play Starfield and find it a little but I was not expecting that so many people, even their fans, would find it you know. I thought the fans would be diehard, would be excusing it left and right, wouldn't mind it, would be making excuses for everything, kind of like this post. I mean, honestly, this is the kind of post we were seeing before the game launched. You guys remember I was saying it's insane that they don't have vehicles for you to drive around these planets, because you'll land on a certain spot on the planet, but then if you want to move somewhere else on the planet, you have to fast travel with your ship, and then there's a load screen between the 2 points instead of just having like a rover or a speed bike or something to travel around the planet. And now we know it's because you're in these fish bowls, and if they gave you a vehicle to zip to the edge, you'd hit the edge very, very quickly, and it would be very clear that this is not a whole planet for you to explore. They were kind of hoping you wouldn't go, you know, full Truman Show mode and hit the wall, that you would always just kind of stay within the center of it. But I remember posting those videos and TikToks and stuff saying, this doesn't make sense that they aren't giving you vehicles. This is not going to work very well. And people were saying, no, there are vehicles. They're just not announcing them yet. Just you wait. You're jumping the gun. And they were, what was really delicious about it is that they were saying I was jumping the gun and I was inferring things that were not true because I was saying there weren't vehicles, because they hadn't said anything about vehicles, didn't mention them, no hint of them, whatever, which was truly delicious because they are the ones just making up that vehicles will be in the game, even though they haven't been mentioned, because they're saving it for a super special ultra announcement closer to launch, or when we play the game, and it'll be so cool. I'm like, you're accusing me of the literal, like the exact thing that you're doing. You're making up that vehicles are in the game, and then you're saying that I'm making up information that they're not in the game because they haven't been mentioned. Like, what are we talking about? Luke taking a victory lap. Oh yeah. I mean, I know maybe the proper thing is to be like, I don't like saying I told you so, but I told you so. No, I like saying I told you so, especially because so many of these people were so toxic and just nasty to me and to the community in the lead up to Starfield. Yeah, it feels good to be able to go like, yeah, see, when you have two brain cells to rub together, you can infer this stuff and figure out that this is how it's going to go. It's not that complicated. Like, these games are not magic. Okay. If something doesn't make sense, what's more likely, that there's a huge piece of it you're missing, or that maybe they were just kind of stupid and they didn't think about this thing, or that it doesn't come together properly? Probably the latter. Like, it's just not that complicated. Like, with so many of these things, like when people were like, Luke, how did you predict that ZeniMax was going to sell to Xbox before it was announced and everything? And I'm like, because it's not that complicated. They say openly they're trying to maximize revenues and increase their bottom lines and get as far into the black as they possibly can. They're talking to other huge private equity firms about potentially selling chunks of their business off to them. And I was like, so clearly they're open to selling. They're trying to do all this live service stuff to maximize revenues to get a higher price when they sell. Yeah, they're going to sell to a big boy like Xbox or something, maybe Vivendi, or at that time we were thinking maybe Embracer Group even. Sure enough, they did. And it wasn't rocket science. It's like, no, you just look at the things, you think for a second and you can figure it out. But so often people just go with whatever the Twitter headline is and they don't think about it any further than that. It's the same kind of thing that was like so brain dead about that when people were freaking out over Ubisoft deleting accounts that had been inactive for years. People were like, oh my God, it's Ubisoft trying to destroy people's accounts so they have to buy games all over again. So they're just milking people for more money by deleting their accounts and forcing them to do it. I'm like, guys, 10 seconds of Googling will show you that this is because in the European Union, there are laws requiring them to delete user information, including accounts, if the account has been inactive for a set period of time because they can't agree to the new terms of service, giving consent for that company to retain their information. Like, this is not a matter of corporate overstepping or anything. This is purely a matter of them abiding by the laws of the European Union. And people are like, no, well, no, but it's because Ubisoft bad. I'm like, there's a lot of reasons to not like Ubisoft. This is a very stupid one. This is a very stupid one. Like, what are you talking about? It discredits so many people so often when they do this type of thing, because like these YouTubers and streamers are able to be informed. Like, they have the ability to know this stuff, but they seemingly intentionally just jump on whatever bandwagon they can as quickly as they can to, I guess the easy thing is to say get clicks, but a lot of them are not even getting like amazing views. So I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's just pure laziness. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff like that where every once in a while I'm like, is this just somebody being stupid or lazy, or is it there's some bigger plot here? I don't know. He took my thing. Red flag.